Meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me, as always, Alan Medlock at a Medlock1. And we're coming at you Friday morning after an off day, after a weird week of baseball to some degree, just the way things worked with rain out and an entire series in one day, and just a little bit of strangeness. But Alan, I mean, the Cardinals still playing, most recent example of their play is not what we necessarily want to look at, but because of that doubleheader. But for the most part, still playing pretty well.
Oh yes, 5-2 road trip. You'll take that anytime. Come in. It was just an odd day. With the Tuesday rain out, stacking everything up on a Wednesday. It was just weird. I mean, I give the Royals a lot of credit. They were fun to watch. They really athletic. That's they hit and run. They move guys around a lot. So it's one of those you pat them on the back and move on. It's not the result you want. And in that situation, you think that doubleheader sweeps are rare. They're typically you get the draw on that and you walk away with it. But they just couldn't. Lost the lead in the first game, and in the second game, anytime they got close, the Royals scored again. And not much you can do about that. Get that day off, and now you're set up for your pitching for a big 4-game series this week and moving into the break.
Yeah, I think I saw a tweet from Dirk Gould that said that with this 2-game sweep, the Royals now have a 500 record at Busch Stadium, 23 and 23, 26 and 26, something like that, which is a little bit, interesting, really, because how bad the Royals have typically been in this interleague series. I mean, that also probably counts the 85 World Series, but so I think that's another one of those things that, I know the Cardinals, I felt like the Cardinals at least used to do pretty well over in Kansas City. But again, when you've got two baseball teams in general, but apparently two in-state rivals like that, some things are going to happen, and you don't always go by the records. So it was disappointing to see the Cardinals lose that first game because of the lead that they built up. And it was a situation, and I saw some other people talking about this on Twitter, but the way they've been playing as of late, you didn't expect that, right? I mean, earlier in the season or especially last year, an early lead, you still kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think they've played well enough lately that it was a bit of a surprise when they blew that, 3-run lead that they got early, especially with a couple of home runs. You kind of felt like this is their day, and then all of a sudden the spigot turned off and the Royals came back. But I think it's just a testament to the improvement is the fact that we were a little bit surprised by that instead of saying, "Oh, here we go again."
Yeah. That was right. You're exactly right. I mean, I was leaving work and saw that it was 3-0 before it went up. Found out it was an Arenado homer, and one of those things you felt pretty good about it. And then by the time you get home, there's a rally starting and 2 hits and they're tied up, and you're like, I'm waiting for a dogfight here. And then couldn't really score the rest of the time. The Royals bullpen was really good, and then that game was the same thing. You're just like, well, this luck's kind of terrible. One of those situations. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's you can tell it's just a world of difference from where we felt last year.
I was again surprised. They bring up Graceffo as that 27th man, but I was a little bit surprised they just really were using him to start a bullpen game because he only went 2 innings, 2.5, 2 2 1/3, something like that. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't try to run him out into a little bit more of a full-time start, but they obviously was their plan because they were, scheduling. They were playing the first game with Plante sticking around long enough that it is obviously clear that this was the plan. That they weren't going to let Graceffo go too terribly long.
Yeah, that's I'm not certain. I didn't realize that he was even announced to be the night start until that day, because
Yeah.
it was undecided for a little while, and then then they went ahead and ran with it. But yeah, there's obviously a method to the madness. I wasn't really sure it's a I can't remember which of the. I know we didn't see Helsley, of course. I don't
Mhm.
believe we saw Romero. Maybe in the first game, I think. But they it, there was a lot of smoke signals that kind of went out to, hey,
Mhm.
let's just get past today and be ready for the weekend type moves. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's the way that I felt about it. And there were some managerial moves that I felt like that as well. That being one of them.
I was wrong. Greffa went 3 1/3, which is a little bit better, but
And he got roughed up a little bit too.
mm,
But yeah, you're right. No, 100% right.
yeah, I mean, he went 3 1/3 and gave up 3 runs. Of course, Liberatore then comes in and gives up the same amount in just an inning and two
Yes,
thirds.
yes,
And it still feels, and again, maybe it's recency bias. Maybe it's what I remember. It still just doesn't feel like you got a real good handle on what Liberatore is going to be or can do, right? I mean, we see him have some really strong, relief outings. We see him have games like this. We've seen him, throw that, that gem of a start. But then
yeah.
other times when he starts, it's just a blowout. It just that consistency is not there. Which, I mean, again, he's still pretty young, but he's also been around this team for so long that I think, at least as fans, we keep thinking he should be better than this by now.
Yeah, a lot of mystery. I mean, it's one of those to where you come over and he was the gem of the trade,
Hmm.
and it's what's going to be the upside here? Is he going to be the high value reliever, or are they ever going to be able to put him back in the rotation? Because I I feel a lot more comfort when he's out of the bullpen than I do in a starting role. The ball that Salvador Perez hit off him almost landed in Ballpark Village. He crushed it, and it was a bum rush. And, I mean, it first pitch of the at bat, and it was he destroyed it. I don't know if that's what is that apropos to either one of
Mhm.
them. I'm not sure, but I mean, it was destroyed. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of mystery involved in that. The, as we lead into the trade deadline, how much did how much does he factor into this? Is it going to be, hey, he's a big part of our bullpen, in any playoff run, or is that possibly a name that we hear dangled about? I mean, I don't know. Just because it's becoming one of those, we've seen this tale before.
Mhm.
I feel like,
Yeah, I mean, that being said, he's still just 24. He won't turn
yeah,
25 till November. Um, he's got, let's see, what is this? His He's got 147 major league innings in his career. So, things are trending in the right direction over the last couple of years, just to what we've seen now, but it's still trying to figure out whether he's the reliever, whether he's the starter. Um, I'm pretty sure that if somebody was interested, yeah. I don't know that anybody is going to be, and again, you'd be selling low on him. Um, but we're getting to that point where, we are just what, a little over 2 weeks till the trade deadline now. Um, if you're putting together a package, does Liberatore go in there? Maybe. I mean, because the Cardinals don't have a lot of minor league
yeah,
options. They have some major league talent that they may have to move because of various reasons, and maybe that's one of them. I don't know. I think that, in a situation where they're needing pitching, that it's hard to let him go. But again, we've just not seen what we thought we would see out of
sure,
him. So I don't know. I mean, I hate to cut bait on a guy like this, especially at 24. But
agreed.
he's been in the system now a long time, and that's part of the problem. And, we talk about prospect fatigue and stuff like that. It's part of the problem with a young guy getting in the system and then taking a while, right? Is, we get tired. It's like, man, why is this guy not doing anything by now? And, well, he's still just 24. So I don't know. I think that he's getting to the point, though, that the Cardinals are going to have to figure out what they want to do with him because,
Sure.
at some point in time, I don't think he's got enough service time yet, but at some point in time, he's going to have to be one of those non-tender candidates. Doesn't mean he will be.
Yeah, well,
Um,
more to your first point. They may not have any other option. You know what
yeah,
I mean? 'Cause
right.
if they're going to try to improve, they're going to have to be kind of creative. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the age is one thing, the upsides is another, and gosh, I don't know, it's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But we'll just have to see. I mean, we're looking at, and we're talking here about Graceffa, who's just now making his major league debut,
Yeah,
and he's just 4 months younger
yeah,
than Liberatore.
sure,
So, um, trying to keep everything in perspective is it's a difficult thing,
yeah,
and definitely not what we want to do on Twitter and podcasting. Perspective is just out the window. But I don't know. I think that the this trade deadline is going to be very interesting, right? Because of trying to figure out how this roster is going to look. We've talked about the roster quite a bit, and we've seen a little bit of it this week, right? And Lars Nuchbar, shouldn't be that hard to say, made his return this week. Felix Fermin went back to Jose Fermin every time. Went back to AAA. But that's kind of like the last easy move, right? Herrera is doing pretty well. Tommy Edman actually played minor league baseball, and then left with soreness. But he hadn't played in a while, so I guess that's part of it. I think it was just natural stuff, though. I haven't seen any updates on him. But both those guys coming back pretty soon, and trying to figure out not only how you get them on the roster, but how they get playing time. That really may impact what the trades are like.
yeah, yeah, very true. I mean, it, the Edmund deal is just odd.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad because I'm a fan of his. And when you see what the Royals do, as far as a lot of movement, a lot of running, you can see how athletic they could be with Edmund. That was one of the reasons I like having him in the lineup every day. It's just it's I don't know. It's a lot of fun right now, and you want to be like, hey, let's see some big improvement. There's not a lot of movement to do that, and you're playing pretty well right now. And what pieces do you want to move out? So it's easy to look at those guys that are on their rehab stints and stuff like that, and when they get back, what's going to be the excess, but. Are we so certain they're going to be back and productive? I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, the next 2 weeks are going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for a good Cubs series this weekend. It's always fun. You have the Apple game tonight, then you have the 2 games tomorrow. If you can win 3, you're in a great spot moving into the All-Star game, which my beef turns into only having one All-Star. But yeah, you're right. These next few weeks will be fun. It's always the rumor mill will really ramp up because everybody's in the same spot, but there's hardly ever any movement over this next week. So it's going to be a lot of you got to have a lot of patience right now.
Yeah, it's interesting this year because it's the All-Star break. Is well into the second half this year, right? I mean, we're at 90 games or so already. Yeah, Cardinals have already played 92 games. They'll have played 96 by the time this weekend's done. So well past the 81 halfway mark. It feels like it's about a week later because I know it usually was like the 10th, 11th, about this time, right? So it's a few days later at least. And then the trade deadline is moved up because it's July 30th this year with that new, hey, we're going to change the trade deadline every week, every year thing.
Yeah.
Which is I still kind of miss the days of midnight on the 31st. So trade deadline trades all night long, but still, so that's only there's only like 12, 15 days maybe. It's just 2 weeks basically. And people are going to have to come out of that All-Star break. Things are going to heat up pretty hot, I think, after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more so than they usually do.
Yeah, it's one of those. I was looking at the standings, and that adds another aspect to it of how many teams are so close.
Sure.
It could be a lot of fun. I love the All-Star week anyway, so I hope that we start hearing a bunch of rumblings about who's going where and what teams are going to be involved, because that'll say a lot. So hopefully this week that we get a lot of that. But yeah, you're right. It's I love that static trade deadline where and I was also a big fan of the waiver system.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's just you're right. It's a moving target. It's another to me is the way that baseball gets in their own way quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I get that they, to some degree, are trying to make sure it doesn't, land on a weekend, or I think that's part of it. They're trying to just make sure that it's, some optimal type of thing. But um, trying to remember every year when it is going to be a lot of back and forth. I think last year it was what, August 1st, August 2nd, something like that. So, um, and trying to and I know that they moved it from midnight because they didn't want to be interrupting games and stuff like that. But heck, interrupting games was the fun part.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You don't have to worry about hug watch as much as you used to because those guys they're not making trades at the right times. But you're right. I mean that's we keep hoping that um the standings will kind of spread out a little bit, right, and give some teams some clarity about what they should or shouldn't do. But unless you're the Rockies and the Marlins, and the Nationals now are 6 games out, and they're probably, you know, they're sellers if they've got anything to sell, because a lot of their talent is young and upcoming, and they're not moving yet. They may still have some pieces I haven't looked to see, um, but other than that, everybody's within 3 of the wild card, and it's you just got to kind of and not watching these teams, but I mean the Cubs are 3 games out of the wild card now. After winning four in a row, if they come in
Yeah.
and even split this weekend, or far be it, win the series, they're right in that mix, right? The Pirates are just a couple of games out, which I mean, what do the Pirates do? Do they want to invest in this team, or do they think it's still too early? But even then, you're probably not. You're just standing pat to some degree, right? So I don't know. I think that the National League is still that jumbled mess we've been talking about for quite some time. You get over the American League, you've got more teams available, which maybe brings up an interesting. As I look at this, the Rangers are 7.5 out.
Mm,
Um, there has been
yes.
nothing official, nothing tied to them, but the Max Scherzer name is out there. And I know that's not the Max Scherzer that we could have had, 6 years ago now, that the Cardinals passed on when he, a number of years ago. But it still feels to me like that would be a really interesting addition to this team.
Yes, I knew that would get brought up. That's one that I would be all over. You know what I mean? And it's one of those. I have really really slow connectivity right now, and I don't know why, but I am going to go on and check his contract status, because that's one that would be awesome. And I'm a big fan of the veteran starters. The veteran starter with that kind of St. Louis connection, that it's one of those that you always kind of wondered how close he actually was to pitching in St. Louis. I don't know. That'd be amazing. A lot of playoff experience, and that checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah. Scherzer's contract he's a free agent at the end of this year. He's getting $43 million this
Yeah,
year, but the
that's
Mets
what I was actually going to look at.
but
I knew he was right up against it, but
yeah, but the Mets are paying 31 million of that. And so that's only they're paying 12. The Rangers are supposed to pay him 12.5 million this year. And we're well past halfway. So you're looking at what, 5.5 million maybe for Scherzer if you took on all the salary, and that would be reasonable. That would be in the Cardinals. They would be able to do that. I think they have that kind of room between them and the salary cap to do that. Um, and I mean, yeah, I get it that you know, but he's got to be an improvement over everybody but Sonny Gray, right? I mean, I would feel like I will say I know he hasn't pitched as much because he's been hurt and everything of that
sure.
nature. But I mean, and if you're talking about leadership and fired up, getting the team fired up, that would do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can look at that. I mean, it's one of those to where Yes, he was hurt, but still, if his name is headlining a playoff start, it's going to get attention on MLB Network early. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? There is going. I mean, there's a lot of swagger that goes there, and it would. I mean, I would be all over that. I wouldn't think it would take much. My skepticism comes from I just don't see the Rangers trading many people.
Yeah, but then I mean, to some degree, I mean, they are out of it. You would think. I mean, I know that. I mean, 7.5 is quite a bit. Even and they've won 7 of the last 10 to get to that point. They do have a positive run differential, so there's that. I mean, and Scherzer's a free agent. I mean, he's not. I mean, they could sign him for next year, but they could, it feels like to me that he's an option,
Yeah,
um, more so than if they had him for next year or anything like that. If they wanted to try it again next year, um, he's only pitched 4 games this year. Has a 3.09 ERA, has 17 strikeouts in 23 innings, which is a little bit low for Scherzer. But only 3 walks. His FIP is 4.33, so it's still not. He's not classic Scherzer, but
yeah,
I mean, you don't need. I mean, obviously you could use it, but I don't think the Cardinal. I mean, to improve the rotation, you wouldn't need classic Scherzer. I mean, like
sure.
I said, he would still be. I mean, and you're right. In a playoff series, he's slotting in probably number 2, maybe number 3, depending on how Michaelis is running. But if running a Scherzer when you don't have to pitch him your first game, I think that may give you an advantage in that series, right?
Sure. I mean, that's. I would think that would make your rotation really good. Because I mean, I don't think they're bad now, and it's one of the things. Palante, he's made it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Mhm.
he's impressed me more than they have, and pitching to me has definitely been a strength. To add to it would be huge, and I there's a lot of symbolism of Scherzer coming to St. Louis. I would love
Mhm.
to see it. This also feels like one of those to where we hear that rumor a ton and he goes back to LA or something like that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? One of those type of
yeah,
situations. You could almost see that one coming and him going and succeeding somewhere else. If they trade him at all. It's I don't know.
yeah,
These are always the heartbreaking trades for us that make a whole lot of sense. Would really fire up the fan base even more, and he goes to a rival. you know,
yeah. Sure. I mean, and it
I
is.
would
I mean,
love it though.
he has a no trade clause, so he can pick where he goes, and there's a possibility. I mean, that he's decided St. Louis isn't the place, right? That they had their shot and they didn't take it and all that. I don't know that he has any kind of grudge against the Cardinals or anything like that, but um, that's just that feels like a person that the Cardinals could get that could improve this team and wouldn't cost a ton in players. Um, because of if you're taking on that,
Sure.
$5 million. And so it just kind of feels like it fits all of what the Cardinals would do and can do right now. It's not Max Scherzer from a year ago or 2 years ago where it would cost you, your entire minor league system and a whole lot of money. And, you know, the Cardinals aren't in on anything like that. But, you know, a guy that's 39 years old and is coming back from injury, and on a 2-month deal, that feels right in the Cardinals' wheelhouse.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would seem like the path to make this happen would be fairly easy because you would be taking on money and not sending out a whole bunch. I would assume,
Yeah.
but yeah, and all those things were like, yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense to make it even to make it even more heartbreaking when it doesn't happen.
Well, that's true. I don't know if we've ever talked about a trade that actually did happen.
That's true.
I mean, it feels like that's the case. Yeah, I don't. I'm just kind of skimming, trade rumors to see if they'd been talking about it. It's very. It's also interesting that, at least according to them, Jack Flaherty's like probably the best arm out there on the trade market. That's not going to happen. We know
No,
that, but it is just interesting to see that he's kind of improved his stock with the Tigers this year, but then he probably won't be there. It feels like Flaherty has a chance to be one of those guys that bounces around the league a lot.
sure, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, which I mean,
Yeah,
Scherzer has too.
yeah, that is that I could that is a trade that I can never see happening.
Yeah, no, I think there's enough water under that bridge. That's not. I mean, that's just not going to happen. And again, I mean, that's even if you could get the Flaherty we're seeing now, which there's no guarantee that you would.
Yeah,
It's going to cost a lot more, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's part of the thing is the Cardinals just don't. They have, and we've talked about it. If you wanted to go this way, Yvonne Herrera is probably your best trade chip, at least major league wise. You've got Dylan Carlson that you could move out if somebody wanted to buy low on him. And you got some of those guys at AAA that, again, haven't claimed a spot yet. Maybe you trade a Graceffo because he's proven that he can pitch in the major leagues, although I would be a little bit surprised if they did that. Maybe you trade in a Liberatore. We talked about that. I mean, but, there's just not just a whole lot of, it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of pieces for the Cardinals to go out and trade for. That's why, whatever they do, and it may only be one trade that they do because I don't know that they can put together more than one.
yeah. That's a really good point. I mean, we always are a little surprised that Mo can swing these kind of things like he does.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they move a little bit, but there's also another thing too where I'm not really sure where the improvement can come from. I guess you can always get better, but there's another one too is how much you upset the apple cart too by moving around too much. Like we talk about, you had a great point of the bottom falling out whenever the Brewers traded who's the lefty? I'm drawing a blank. He's at Houston now. Closer.
Hader.
Yeah, whenever they traded him, and you had a great point when we were talking about that with Helsley, to where it's like, yeah, they made that move that made a lot of sense, contractually and organizationally, but they never recovered. And you kind of wonder what would happen with Cardinals roster with some of these guys that are behind the scenes assets, So
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a little bit worrisome in that aspect, but you're still 5 games behind, and Milwaukee is going to make some moves. So
yeah.
I know they're not going to keep up with the Joneses, but behind the scenes, I think you honestly do.
Yeah, well, a little bit. I mean, you got to. I also want
Yeah.
to. I guess we probably should dump the cold water right now. We did a quick Google search, and apparently Wednesday on a podcast, Scherzer says he's not waiving his no trade clause, so he thinks
Okay.
they can win in Texas. So, I mean, could that change in 2 weeks? If the Rangers, went on lost 7 of 10, and it was the Cardinals, maybe. But yeah, it probably needs to be put back in that not going to happen category, which
Sure.
is pretty much what we knew anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is the Cardinals are playing better, and it still feels like they need some sort of pitching, whether it's another starter or it's at least another a bullpen arm they can rely on a little bit more. So we don't have that whole, everybody's tired type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's about. I mean, the good thing is now that Goldschmidt and Arenado's still need to hit better, right?
Yeah. Oh,
We saw a really good week out of Nolan out in or at least a good weekend for him out in Washington. And then he had the homer in the game run in the first game against the Royals. So there's a little bit there. And Goldie's still working at it, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, these guys can hit better, but they're not going to be replaced. It's not like you're going to go upgrade there. And the rest of the lineup is doing pretty well. Save, Siani's bat is probably not anything special, but his glove is. And if the offense is going the way it is, you don't really mess with that. So there's not much to do on the offensive side of things. If you get, even just one arm well placed could be the difference, right? I mean, if you got a starter, if you could hope that, and then again, I haven't heard anything about Steven Matz lately, but if he comes back in August to help the bullpen, um, you know, there's that, or at least maybe you can rotate some people from Memphis and find a way to make the bullpen a little bit stronger than it is. So it doesn't feel like the Cardinals have to do a lot, even though they're not a favorite at any means at the playoffs. I don't think there's much they can do, I guess, either to really improve this. I mean, if they could get four
Sure.
new starters, that were Sonny Gray level, sure, but that's not going to happen. So when you're looking at the actual trade deadline, I don't think they'd have to go out and make a huge move to improve this team.
Yeah, and you would think that just with overusage issues, that it's definitely going to be bullpen of some sort.
Mhm.
And you're right. That's the Matt's deal. We're getting to that point now where it's like, hey, he's going to work himself into the bullpen anyway because we're just going to run out of runway to get it to see it through. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think that you'll see some of the bullpen names linked to St. Louis pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think that's the case. We'll have to wait and see. Now, you made reference a little bit ago to the Cardinals just having one All Star, which All Star game is obviously next week. Uh, that it sounded like you were surprised about that.
I was I want to look at the rosters again, just because I've kind of calmed down a little bit. I was surprised that we didn't get Wynn and Burleson a little bit more. That I I don't know. I
Mhm.
was a little disappointed that both of them. And you know what? This weekend we may find out a lot about that.
Yep.
But there was no even link at all for a team that's in the playoff hunt. Helsley was the easy one, but yeah, I don't know. I was just a little surprised that it was just the one. It was just the one.
Yeah. I wasn't too much. What I was surprised at was Helsley had to be added by MLB because he wasn't voted by the players,
Yeah,
which really surprised me given, you know, 31 saves and not that's not just I know saves is not always a situation where um you could just use the number, but I mean it's a big number and he's been dominant while he's done it. Um so I was surprised that it took that to get him in there. Um, as for I thought Wynn might have a chance, but I mean, there's a lot of shortstop, middle infield types.
yeah, I
You
agree.
know,
I agree.
I mean, you look at the bench here for the National League. It's C.J. Abrams, Pete Alonso, Luis Arias, Mookie Betts, Eladilla Cruz, Freddie Freeman, Ryan McMahon. I don't know who you would take Win over
But
those.
but here's the thing. Now, is Betts still on the roster?
He is as of this article, which is it has some of the replacements. This one is dated July 11th, so it's dated yesterday
Okay, see
on
that's
MLB.com. So as far as I know, he still is.
well, that will be a replacement.
Okay.
The because I was looking at that and I thought he had already been filled in. Yeah, I would. Well, when you look, to me, Wynn deserves it,
Hmm.
and I know the bench is deep, and his offensive numbers aren't that far off, but his defensive numbers are better than a lot of them.
Yeah.
Um, so that I was just surprised that we didn't hear any more Link, and then
Sure.
to me, it's just crazy that you just have the one. And I know that immediately everybody's going, well, that's who the Cardinals are, type situation. And I feel like everybody jumps on one of those things. And I try not to make a big deal out of the All Star game, but there's a lot of first timers and there's a lot of guys that have been there a long time. I just felt the mix to me, I felt like he deserved to make it. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and I get that, and I would have liked that. I mean, and he's a face that I think has got a good chance of being one of those players that people know, face of baseball type of players. Um, and I think he will make some. But I guess it's not too surprising, that as a rookie in St. Louis, he doesn't necessarily make it. And again, you're right. There could be opportunities to be added to. I guess it's also a little bit surprising Sonny Gray didn't make it, especially the way he started the year. And he's had really good times, but he's had some clunkers of starts too, and maybe that was enough to keep him out. Again, possibility he might show up eventually. Um, but I think that it does kind of indicate what the Cardinals are as the team that is kind of almost winning in spite of itself, right? I mean, we talk about the negative run differential. Um, we talk about the weaker central. It's still, I think, at least to some degree, a little bit hard to get your head around that this is a good team, or it should be a good team, versus they're playing above their heads. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
sure.
Probably just because last year still informs it, and because at the beginning of this year, you still keep wondering when that bubble's going to burst or the shoe's going to drop or whatever the case may be. And I don't know if people around baseball see it the same way or what. But this really does kind of feel like especially when Goldie and Arenado playing at more like replacement level or whatever, it feels more like a team than and then stars. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not people that stand out quite as much, that they're winning as a unit, not because somebody's being MVP.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, all true. I mean, it's I don't want to say smoke and mirrors, but I think they've
Mhm.
been minus 38 in run differential the last three shows we've done. And it was one
Yeah.
of those. And I know that we kind of did the math a little bit last week, but I mean, you're right. So it's still it back to that microscope aspect that you and I talk about a lot of. We see the guys for the good and more likely the bad in a lot of situations than uh, in situations when these things come about. So yeah, it was one of those that I was just thinking. I'm so optimistic about the season and where they are and how things have worked out that I
Mhm.
thought, man, they'll be well represented this summer in Texas. But it's a little bit disappointing just to see the one.
Yeah. Now,
Not so,
this
and I won't be surprised. I mean, because bets will change, but I don't know who's you know. I don't know who would backfill that, but
Yeah, I don't either. We talk about run differential, and it was like, we saw Sunday, the run they actually won by 5 runs, which was really nice, and we hadn't seen very much of that. And then they come into the doubleheader on Wednesday and lose by a total of 5 runs, like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
completely out. And that is part of the problem with the Cardinals and that run differential is, and I get why people use it, and it's a good thing to use, but they have won so many 1-run games and then lost so many 4 or 5-run games, stuff like that, that it takes 4 wins to offset 1 loss. Um, and I don't know. I mean, even if they make the playoffs, I don't know that they'll have a positive run differential the way this team plays, right? I
sure,
mean, because there's going to be a nights where you're just going to get lit up, and because we know if Michaelis doesn't have it, or um, Lynn doesn't have it or something like that, he gets ugly quick, right? Um, and I don't know that they're going to win a whole lot of games like that. I don't think there's a whole lot of games where they just come out mashing and they, win even 8-3 like they did on Sunday. That was a rare game.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, you're completely correct, and it's one of those to where everybody's going to be tired of hearing me say this, but that run differential changes a lot when your boppers hit. You
mhm,
know what I mean? And as we get into mid July, I'm really skeptical it's going to happen. Goldsmith has had some balls recently that he really got into, and I thought, he may be coming around. And then I sit here, then Arenado kind of starts hitting a little bit, but neither one of them just the power that we're used to.
yeah.
And that is the one that's a little bit troublesome.
Yeah, I was listening. I'm behind on my podcast listening, so it was last week's show for talking about birds, but they were talking about Goldie's, you know, underlying metrics there on Baseball Savant, and just now pulling up, his hard hit percentage is 89%, and his exit or 89th percentile, and Exit velocity is 83, and there's some there that makes you feel like maybe he's just getting some bad results. Um, but he's striking out more than he needs to be,
Yeah.
and um, chasing a little bit, probably a little bit more than he should. Um, so I don't know, and that's just when you get to where his age is and all that. We've talked about that a lot. You just don't know if it's at some point in time it's going to bounce back, or if this is just the way things are now. Um, so I don't know. I do hope that there's at least one surge of those two guys
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah. That's I keep expecting it, honestly. Where you're just like, all right, someone's gonna get on a heater and things are gonna get really interesting. But it's still Wynn and Burleson kind of carrying the load a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I'm cautiously optimistic someone's gonna get on one.
It would be nice. I mean, you're right. Burleson definitely has shown some of that, right? I mean, the fact that he's got 15 home runs now is pretty interesting. I didn't realize I knew that he had done well. I didn't realize he had already got to that level until I saw that
Yeah,
number, and I was like, oh, okay. And it really feels like he has settled into that, kind of developed into that player that we thought, the metrics thought he was going to
sure.
be over the last couple of years. Um, and probably puts himself in line to be first base next year, or at least a regular DH. I don't know. That's going to be a conversation, right? I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that he's completely changed the outlook of how things are moving forward. So
Hmm.
no, you're right. I mean, it's and one. I mean, he's probably the most clutch. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a stat that says otherwise, but he's whenever the lineup turns around to them, that's where you feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm very interested to see if Newt can have a big of a run now
Yeah,
that he's back and healthy. Um, and now that he knows he actually has bones. That was the quote that he had, that they'd done the density testing or whatever to make sure that and he said, trying to say if his bones were bones or something like that, and see if there's a reason he keeps getting injured.
yeah,
And it's more just how he plays.
sure.
But I think it's, if Newt can get going and can stay on the field, I think that would be very interesting, right? We saw him hit a home run yesterday. Um, but especially if they can get him up toward the top of the lineup, maybe him and Burleson together, maybe they can do some damage, especially early in games, and let things snowball.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, then you add in like Donovan's never hasn't really truly gone on a run either, but
Hmm.
still a hard out. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that we're saying right now kind of shows. Well, yeah, they're a lot better than we're probably giving them credit for on this, but still, they just haven't had that one just dominant run of we're not going to get this guy out type situation either.
I will say the Cardinals probably would have had another All Star if Wilson Contreras hadn't been hurt.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Very very true.
I mean, the
Yeah.
way he was playing and the way he's picked up, I mean, I think it's been pretty impressive to see what he has done coming back. I mean, he really didn't miss a beat, right? I mean, he's not really had a struggles since he returned, because I thought maybe timing with where whatever, and he's done pretty well since he came back.
Yeah. Is he not just the prototypical hate him when he's not in a Cardinal uniform, love him when he is? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Even some of the
absolutely.
antics I was watching the other day, he was hot when he got hit with the ball, which they are throwing in on his hands the whole time. But um, whenever I remember thinking I would have hated that if he was a Cub, and now I'm thinking, okay, let's fire this clubhouse up, something we haven't had in a while. It was awesome to see, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, he's one of my favorite Cardinals, and if they could just cut down on the stolen bases, boy, they'd be in a good spot.
Well,
It's crazy.
there's that. There's no doubt. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, and I think part of it is because we get to see Contreras' personality on a regular basis, so we know where some of those antics are coming from, um, which gives them a little bit more context. But there's no doubt, he was one of those guys you hated as a Cub.
Oh man,
that
yeah,
you knew he was going to come up and have a big hit against the Cardinals, or you know, he was just going to just ruin your day. And it was a little hesitation when the Cardinals signed him. I mean, it's like, well, this is really what we want to do, but it's working, and there's no doubt. I mean, I will say there was when the fact that the Cardinals are still playing well after he came back helped reduce the idea that the Cardinals have been infected with cubness when he came, because his first year is 2023, and then they're playing terrible in the beginning of 24, and they get hurt and they start playing better. I was getting a little concerned that he was the problem, even though um, from his intangibles, but thankfully they've played better since he's come back. We can put that theory to rest. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I think if you can put, the way Burleson's playing and the way Contreras goes, and if Nootbaar can put something together, all of a sudden this is an offense that is going to be a threat, right? And then you just got to hope the pitching holds, and it looks like at least they're going to be in the hunt for October all year long. And that's not what we thought at the end of May, right? Or at the end of April. We expected this trade deadline to be another one of those ones where we're trying to figure out who's getting sold off, and are they really
sure.
revamping this whole front office, and or this whole tear down, and here we are basically back in the same spot we always are, except for 2023.
Yep. The turnaround has been awesome. Turnaround's been driven by the pitching, and I couldn't agree with you more on the Contreras deal, because if you remember on the signing, you would have thought that since Chicago didn't re-sign him, he was washed up.
Right.
We heard all those things, and you hear the rumblings moving the outfield, which was just ridiculous. I was like, this is
Right.
embarrassing. And then you see what happens, and now you see that he's a major member of the team in that lineup. It's nice to see, and you got to think that has to do with that's a big part of the turnaround too. I mean, I was listening to the radio broadcast the other day, and they mentioned how big of a clubhouse impact Crawford is.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was funny. It was just kind of a cultural shift when they brought in some of those guys. So all of the signs that bringing in the veterans now to where we thought, wow, what do these guys have left, points to the fact that I think last year was a disaster in the clubhouse, and I think
Yeah.
it was a lot worse than it was even led on.
Yeah. I mean, there's a real good chance of that. I think, and the fact that, yeah, it was a mess all the way around. And in the Contreras stuff, that just didn't make, and then that wasn't even, clubhouse stuff. That was front office stuff. It was just a mess. Everybody. Um, and they brought in new faces, and they let some people go too. And you wonder how much absence is helping this team as much as the leadership that's here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I don't want to cast aspersions, and it just may have been a situation that didn't work, um, but there are a lot of people gone. And
yeah.
so hard to know, but
No,
they're
I
much,
completely agree. Yeah, I
yeah,
completely agree. And I think this is, I'm by no means signaling them out. The idea of bringing your Flaherty or similar back, I think points that's way off base. That's probably never going to happen. And I'm not even saying Flaherty was the issue. I'm just saying
right.
I think that they're not going to do a rewind of some of the guys they had last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, it's not. I mean, it happens, but it's not all that common for a guy to get traded back to a team, right? I
Sure. Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah.
especially not right after he left. Not even if even if it's been a amicable parting. It's just
I,
not that likely.
No, I was going to say if this was more of a Jordan Montgomery was a possibility, I would say yes, that would make a lot of sense, because I do think they probably made a play to bring him back at some point, or a little bit last year. I think that there was probably some flirtation with that, but knew that he was probably out of the market, with what he signed. Um, I just don't see that as a Flaherty type situation. I think that
Yeah.
for the same reason, you don't see it as often as it seems to be reported.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery's struggled significantly with Arizona. Um, it's hard to me. I mean, I know that he's going to. I know he would say it. I know, and there's something to it, right? The fact that he didn't get a spring training,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
signed later. But
I think
how
there's a lot of
much?
that with those guys now
You think
that are
so?
coming out and saying that.
I mean, by now, though, wouldn't you think that? I mean, I would make sense for a slow start, and then they get better as the things going on. But do you think that's still the impact? Because I mean, I want to say it was just a week or so ago he had another one of those games that was just getting destroyed. His ERA is over 6 for the season. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's one of those things you never can get right because you never got that spring training. But
Agreed. I
I
do
don't
agree with
know.
that. I mean, well, I think that we hear the flip side too much of hey, this it's too long. They don't need to do, you know what I'm saying? And there
Mhm.
may be a base to that's probably true, right?
Yeah,
That 40 days or whatever, and the guys usually report in January, so you're probably down there a little too long in that sense. But to work through troubles in an environment that's built to work through troubles, it makes a heck of a lot more sense than doing that when you're in the game in game out situation of you just don't have a lot of time to go and improve. I mean, I agree with that. I think the focused training and the focus of filtering through your problems in a controlled setting like spring training, as
hmm
opposed to doing it on the fly. I could completely understand where the problems come from. And where I get amped up about that is the fact that, one, it's obvious, and two, the agents don't see it or
yeah.
fail to care.
Looking at Montgomery's game log though is a little bit weird. I mean, his first game out for Arizona, he gives up a run in 6 innings. His second game was good. Then his third game, 6-3, 6 runs, 3 innings. Then he has 3 or 4 more good games. Then he gives up 8-4. Then he gives up
Sure.
6-2. Then he has 3 more good games. Then he has 7 earned in 2 2/3. It's like it's not consistently bad. It's just, I mean, for the most part, he's pitching pretty well. It's just that when he blows up, it blows up badly.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, he's not necessarily just lighting the world on fire, even in the good games. I mean, 3 and 5 1/3, or 4 and 6, or something like that. But um, yeah, I think it's just an interesting year, and it may be that the Cardinals caught it at the right time. I
Yeah.
mean, he pitched well with Texas, obviously, but um, you know, who knows? Hopefully it is that thing that he can find, because the Diamondbacks just signed him to a 1-year deal, didn't they?
Gosh, I can't remember.
Can't remember either. But if so, hopefully he can find a place this offseason pretty easily. And they probably have at least an option on him, I think. Although it would be a little bit surprising to see the Diamondbacks exercise an option on him.
Yeah, that's true.
But don't know. Anyway, 4 games with the Cubs this weekend because of that makeup rain out. You'd like to think you felt good about tonight, but you know, good old friend Kyle Hendricks pitching for the
Yeah.
Cubs against Sonny Gray.
Yeah.
Um, never fails, right? I mean, Kyle Hendricks could be retired for 40 years, and the Cubs would still drag him out for Cardinals Cup Series.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was gonna say you and I had that conversation about you're like, well, Hendricks didn't, you know Hendricks what he is this year coming out of that bullpen. We talked about how he just wasn't the same, and and I was like, anytime he's in the Cubs uniform and he's throwing against St. Louis, I give them the hedge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't
Yep.
care if he's throwing left-handed. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I've seen way too many starts. So you're right. Yeah, I mean, I worry about tonight for that very reason.
Yep. You feel all right. Sunday night's matchup isn't great. And the doubleheader, we don't know who the Cubs are pitching yet. They haven't shown it.
Yeah,
And doubleheaders are, as we know, just kind of
split
their
it
own
and get home.
beast. Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
split is
yes,
what you were hoping for. So you gotta kind of feel like, man, you lose tonight. You think the best option is a split of this series, right? And I really feel like I don't think that the Cardinals have to win this series, but it would be a lot better if they did. right? Because even getting that extra game on the Cubs might be enough to push them into the cellar aspect of things. And because of I've lost Allen. And because of the balanced schedule, this is the only time that this is the last time the Cardinals and Cubs face in Busch, and they only see the Cubs one more time. So having a chance to put a bit of a dagger on them is always something that you want. I think being that we have lost Allen and we've gone almost an hour, I'll probably just go ahead and wrap it here. Thanks for listening. And hopefully we'll be back at you next week after the All-Star game and after the draft, which, well, Alan and I didn't get a really chance to talk about, but we'll see what the Cardinals do there. But until then, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night. Hey everyone, Daniel here. Appreciate you listening to the show, and if you are a regular listener, great to have you. If you're a first timer, hope you come back. We would love it if you would rate and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Either click some stars or give us a write-up. That would be awesome. It helps to get the show spread a little bit farther, and heck, we just like the feedback. I'm going to be honest with you. So if you haven't done that, please do give it a shot. You can find us anywhere you find podcasts for the most part. We're also on YouTube. If you're interested in putting this on in the background, there's no video with it yet. Hopefully never will be. I don't think you want that, but who knows. You can find us, search for Meet Me at Musial, or you can look for Daniel Shoptot under my personal account. But the show's upload there, so if you want to listen to it there, you can. Contact Alan or Daniel or me. That's me, Daniel. You can contact us at any time at C70 at AMedlock1. You can follow the Twitter account of the Musial at Meet Me at Musial. And thanks for being a listener. Appreciate it, and talk at you later.